Is there a little person in your mind talking to you? If there really exists a villain, who will see this villain? Is there a smaller person in a person's head? Perhaps you would say that little people don't have brains. So how can the images in the video become the experience of little people? Do we all have an invisible ghost living in our minds? Our great philosopher Descartes is just as you think. He believed that our soul is an audience sitting in the brain, like a Gundam driver observing the world through a projection screen of the senses, and finally guiding our actions through the pineal gland. 600 years ago, the idea of dividing the body and soul into two parts was very popular. And it has been passed down along with me and continues to thrive to this day. The small-minded person who can doubt and think also constitutes everyone's fantasy of themselves. That's the problem. If we really want a display screen in our minds to show everything we've experienced, it means it must have a neural switch. Just stimulate it. It can present a complete and vivid image, although we all learned in junior high school that when light enters the eyes, it will form an identical inverted image in the brain. But textbooks can't keep up with the times. The visual information we get will not be concentrated in the center of the screen room in the books. They will be divided into different elements by the brain, such as shape and color, and scattered to the occipital visual area. Then they will be processed separately along the compound and dorsal channels, where the dorsal tube is, and the compound side will identify what it is. That is to say, after we obtain information from the outside world, the brain only encodes between neurons without any collection point. If we unify them and turn them back into complete images, the brain naturally does not have a unified screen. If you don't believe it, go take a look at our previous Hmong science popularization. That blind man with cortical blindness can't see anything, but he can guess the location of objects and successfully avoid obstacles. If there really needs to be a little person watching the projection, how could they be there? But how to react correctly when there is no image? You see, visual information doesn't need to be presented as a whole on a shared screen. By allowing Xiaohong to observe the processing mechanisms of local brain regions, it can function normally and help us get through our daily lives. You may also ask, even without a screen, do we still need a little person or a unified soul to direct our actions? Don't worry, just cut open the corpus callosum that connects the left and right brains and truly divide our brain into two. You will find that the left and right brains seem to have independent consciousness. Neuroscientists from the Gozani family conducted a series of experiments on these brainless individuals, such as showing them a snowy landscape in their left eye and a chicken paw in their right eye, and then having them select a related card with each hand. Guess how to tie it? The brain hunter chose a snow shovel in his left hand and a chicken in his right hand. When you asked him why, he explained that it's simple. Chickens and chicken feet are a perfect match. But when he sees the shovel controlled by his right brain, he will continue. Just to add, if you want to clean the chicken coop, you still need a card. That is to say, the left and right brains of computer humans cannot communicate, so their left brain is completely unaware that their right brain has seen the snow scenery. However, their left brain is tightly controlled, so when they feel something is not right, they can only make up a temporary excuse to explain why their right brain took a shovel. What's even more interesting is that when Gazanaga shows a murder scene to the left eye of the brain hunter, he will tell you that he's a bit panicked. But if you continue to ask, the brain hunter will answer, I don't know why. Maybe it's because the room is a bit oppressive. So you see, if there is really a small-minded person to take charge of the whole situation, he must know what he sees with his left and right eyes. But the brain hunter seems to be still in the dark. On the contrary, they seem to have two theaters with their own characters on each side, working separately on the left and right sides. However, the character on the left side manages the language and also takes on the role of scriptwriter, creating a unified plot for the entire play. Got it? Our brain roots. There is no single soul watching the screen at all, but multiple parallel systems. Just because our left and right brains communicate closely, making us feel like there is only one word. Okay, you're right. Even without a screen, I admit there are multiple villains, so there must be a unified sense of giving orders, right? Otherwise, how do you explain our consistent actions? Think about the Libet experiment we talked about before, where Libet asked bets to lift their fingers at any time while recording the preparation potential of the electroencephalogram and the moment of their conscious intention. However, it was found that the brain's motor preparation signal appeared 0.3 to 0.5 seconds earlier than subjective intention, indicating that the brain had already initiated the action program. We felt that the moment we made a sound was just receiving a late notice, and no commander had given the command to raise their hand in advance. Instead, various neural circuits in our bodies were linked in advance to make decisions, and only then did we have the consciousness of wanting to move and develop self-awareness. It's like a little person sitting in the audience. The action had already started. I only saw the screen, and then I reached the end of my consciousness and raised my hand. Rather than saying that the little person is helping us drive, it's more accurate to say that the brain is driving autonomously, and the little person is just buying a ticket to get on the car afterwards. According to this statement, Descartes is not entirely correct. Why do we still feel conscious? We first hand over the camera to philosopher Dennett, who proposed the multiple draft model based on the findings above. He believes that instead of having a single screen, it is more accurate to say that there are multiple screenwriters in the brain and regions simultaneously editing. Just like Weibo, where different nerves in the brain work independently on visual, auditory, physical sensory, and other information, just like a blogger. These drafts will interact with each other, modifying, covering, and competing with each other. If some articles go viral, they will spread widely in the extension area or working memory system, forming a hot list in the brain, which we will remember and use to guide behavior. And this is consciousness. In this model, the brain is completely small. Fixed, there is no theater, no single script, no unique audience, and no moment of conscious formal generation. Each part of the brain is both an actor and an audience, where information competes in parallel and spreads in a decentralized manner. Do you understand now? Our consciousness is a holistic effect of complex information processing in the brain. A piece of information becomes consciousness when it becomes famous in the whole brain, rather than being approved by the little people in the brain. If you think this statement is almost meaningless in terms of scientific explanation, there is a similar but more systematic description called the global workspace theory. This theory is now the most mainstream explanation of consciousness in neuroscience. He did not completely dismantle the brain theater, but made a large-scale renovation. He believes that the brain is indeed a theater, but only the content illuminated by the spotlight of attention can become the information broadcasted by the whole brain. Be noticed by us, become our consciousness, be remembered or used for action. And in the darkness around the stage, there are still a lot of backstage processing, unconsciously, always ready to wait. Once the importance of a piece of information is high enough, such as a sudden loud noise, it will compete for the spotlight and become a new consciousness content. Like the multiple draft model, the small people in the brain are sidelined, with only the spotlight shifting as needed, and the mechanism controlling the lights is only an attention network dynamically scheduled by the brain itself. Perhaps you would say, that's not right. Why can everyone tenaciously feel someone in their mind, and that's me, across different cultures, histories, and religions? This is because the self is not a tangible object in the brain. It is more like a narrative center, like the center of mass in physics. It works well in a square city, but it does not exist as the self we feel. It is interwoven with countless story processes in the brain, and is a useful fiction for us to organize our own experiences. It is like a character archive in a game, with the purpose of providing a unified identity to help us manipulate our bodies and behaviors. You see, during the game, there will be a large amount of data being processed in the background, but what we ultimately see is only a character image and its attribute operation record. This approach allows us to know where the game is progressing, but the game character does not exist on a single chip, but is stored in various locations. Our brain is also like this. During operation, it weaves a coherent story about me through memory and language. The center of this story is the role of the self, so we feel like I am reviewing and manipulating behind the scenes. But it is just an illusion of the user interface. When we let go of the little people in our minds, we will find that our persistent self and consciousness no longer need mysterious souls or behind-the-scenes masters to manipulate them. On the contrary, they emerge and blend in the vast decentralized neural network, continuing endlessly and thriving.